Yeah, I'm going to keep it quite short. I just want to say a big thank you to the fans here in Jeddah. It's been a great weekend. I love the track, and yeah, the rest is what it is. I'm looking forward to Miami, so see you there.
There's no denying that Max Verstappen is not a happy man. Since the beginning of the 2025 season, Max has been driving the wheels off the Red Bull, putting his car on the podium and often splitting the two McLarens. An odd win in Japan might have been down to the track and dirty air.
A 64th Grand Prix victory and one to savour for Max Verstappen, who beat Lando Norris by 1.4 seconds. Oscar Piastri with a podium.
But it doesn't change the fact that Max Verstappen is unlikely to defend his title in 2025, and a move from the current linchpin might set off a crazy, silly season. So, will Max leave? And what does it hold for Red Bull? What are the current contract situations for drivers who might replace him and who are willing to pay almost $250,000 for the Dutchman's signature? Let's find out. The Red Bull conundrum. Since Austria 2024, Red Bull has been facing a big problem. The car performance slowed and some of its rivals began catching up. Max dominated the early season, winning 7 of the first 9 Grand Prix, but as soon as the calendar reached Austria, Ferrari, McLaren and Mercedes would comfortably take points away from Verstappen. Fans had to wait a whopping 10 races from Austria to Brazil, where the Dutchman finally took his 8th win of the season. Despite a weakened Red Bull, Verstappen still won the championship, mostly due to McLaren's screw-ups. Yeah, papaya rules, as Zach Brown put it, would completely destroy cohesion in the team. But everyone knew that once the British outfit mastered their team orders, it would change everything, and this is exactly what is happening in 2025. Regardless of Verstappen's skill, the McLaren is just faster, and now rumours are running wild, talking about the infamous clause contained within Max Verstappen's Red Bull contract. Can Max actually leave? The first question to ask is whether or not Verstappen can leave. A lot of rumours are circling suggesting a performance clause, which should give the Dutchman the right to break his contract. Now, Formula One teams always have some kind of performance clause in their contracts, but it usually benefits the team. For example, if Liam Lawson didn't perform in the Red Bull, it would give Red Bull the option to replace him. But when you deal with big names like Max, Lewis and Lando, these deals can be negotiated in a way that forces the team to also provide the driver with a car that can achieve a certain result. In the case of Max Verstappen, it suggested that if he is not within the top 3 drivers in the championship by the summer break, he could theoretically break his contract and seek a different seat. The problem is that these are merely rumours, and many only speculate about what the details of Verstappen's 6-year contract entail. In fact, no one really knows what any Formula One driver has stated in their contract. If this is true, Verstappen will be able to break free from his Red Bull commitments by the summer break and following Belgium. But is there anyone who can replace him, and why does Max Verstappen hold the cards that could set another silly season in motion? Max holds all the cards. Currently, not a single move in the Formula One drivers' market has been announced, aside from the Yuki Lawson switch. Back in 2024, Ferrari broke news of the Hamilton signing even before the season started. This sets off a chain of events, leaving Mercedes in a tricky situation. The Brackley-based outfit scrambled to sign a replacement, eventually settling for Andrea Kimi Antonelli, a great signing. This left Carlos Sainz without a drive, and given his talent, many teams wanted to get their hands on the Spaniard. Williams finally pulled the trigger, signing Sainz, essentially leaving Logan Sargent without a seat. More moves followed, with most of them taking the lead from Lewis and Ferrari, and by the end of the season, even Checo wound himself on Red Bull's cutting block. Nevertheless, 2025 is a very similar situation, with teams now waiting on Verstappen to make a choice. If the Dutchman breaks his contract with Red Bull, there is no denying that at least 9 of the 10 teams on the grid would want the Dutchman. Perhaps Ferrari with Lewis and Charles are the only team not interested, but given Lewis's failures at the Scuderia, it could possibly change. In fact, drivers like George Russell's contract are set to run out once Abu Dhabi comes around in December. Usually Mercedes would want to renew this as soon as possible, but with Max Verstappen possibly an option, even Toto Wolff is waiting for a decision. The Mercedes boss has made it clear on many occasions that he is interested in the Dutchman, essentially hoping that Max would have been available following the departure of Hamilton. Essentially, the Formula One transfer market is frozen until Verstappen or Red Bull decide on the Dutchman's future. Now, before we look at whether or not Max will leave Red Bull, we need to consider some of the options. Yes, Red Bull is such a great team that many drivers will want to work with Helmut Marko and Christian Horner, especially if you like being attacked in public. Thanks, Dr. Marko. Possible options to replace Max. Given the legacy and performance of the Red Bull team, it is one of the most desirable options for any driver who wants to become a world champion. The only problem is that should Verstappen break his contract, Red Bull will need a new number one driver. Yes, Yuki is currently an option, but no one truly sees Tsunoda as the new team leader. Perhaps the Japanese star will be a great number two driver like Rubens Barrichello, Valtteri Bottas or Mark Webber. However, he doesn't have the outright skill to become a solid team leader for a top-tier team. Fortunately, a couple of drivers will be available at the end of the season who might have an actual shot at becoming the next number one driver for Red Bull. Looking internally, Red Bull will have Yuki, Liam, and now Ishak Hadjar. Two of these drivers are rookies who might not be able to carry a team like Verstappen. The addition of Sergio Perez might be an option, but a decline in 2024 might not make the Mexican a viable option. This means Red Bull will need to look elsewhere, and one man who has already been confirmed to talk to Red Bull might become the next leader of Christian Horner's Austrian team, George Russell. With Mercedes taking a wait-and-see approach, they are yet to formally resign Russell, with the Britain's contract set to expire at the end of 2025. Russell, or Mr. Top 5 as many call him, has been incredible since joining Mercedes. He outperformed Lewis in the same machinery, and despite Mercedes' troubles on hot tracks, he is a frequent person on the podium. In fact, Mercedes has someone consistently carrying the team, but if Max becomes a target for the Brackley outfit, we could see a possible switch with Verstappen. As of this video, it is the most likely and logical decision. The only other viable option available is Kimi Antonelli. According to reports, Kimi's contract is also set to end in 2025, but given his talent and performances, Mercedes will likely want to keep the Italian to ensure he doesn't become Red Bull's next Vettel or Verstappen. One final driver that could possibly be on the cards for Red Bull is Carlos Sainz. The Spaniard is currently tied to Williams until the 2026 season, but rumours have suggested that Carlos might have a clause that allows him to negotiate if a top 3 team makes a move. Should Red Bull remain a top 3 team, it'll more than likely consider Carlos, who is also a former Red Bull junior driver. Basically, Red Bull is very limited when it comes to options and might not want to allow Verstappen to go. So the bigger question is whether Max will move. Likelihood of Verstappen moving from Red Bull. According to various reports, Verstappen currently earns a basic salary of $65 million per year. However, his reported earnings for 2024 were about $75 million. This means the Dutchman is earning a pretty penny at Red Bull. It would be hard for any of the smaller teams to match this offer, but since Ferrari is paying Lewis a whopping $100 million per year, it definitely means the top 4 will be able to give Max his desired salary. Mercedes seems the most likely, but given the fact that they're also struggling to produce a top-class car, it might not make any sense for Max to move to Mercedes. The wild card in this conversation is none other than Aston Martin. Rumours suggest that Lawrence Stroll might be preparing a massive $250 million contract for the Dutchman. No one knows whether this is to replace Alonso or Stroll. However, it is still too early to say whether Max will take the deal. With the flexi-wing ban implemented at the Spanish Grand Prix, Red Bull might find themselves back in the title hunt. But do you think the Dutchman will move, or are these merely rumours we'll forget about by the time Abu Dhabi rolls around? Make sure to let us know in the comments below.